Rabbi Majeski, I have a really quick question.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of people say like Yom Tov, but I've always heard it as Yom Tov. Like my family, as far back as we know, it's always Yom Tov. Why is it the difference?
Yom Tov.
Yeah.
It's a lot of words like that. Authentic is Yom Tov. That's what it's called. But just the way people speak, it turns into Yom Tov. And some people probably don't even know that it's Yom Tov. They just think it's some sort of word which is Yom Tov. I get people writing me, have a good Yom Tov, YONTUF, but really it's Yom Tov with a base. But it just became a way of speaking, that's all. Okay, so referring back to the booklet that I gave out this morning, because I want to finish this and go on to the next subject. The part that we were doing this morning, page 30, by Ali Lorego. We explained why they went to the Beis Hamikdash. What? It was in the morning. Okay, so you can hear it by heart. You'll be able to follow it. And then we spoke about how that same idea is going to Rebbe. And then we started to talk about the question, why is it that people come today, being that you don't see the Rebbe and you don't observe the same things we observed last time, why are they coming today? So I told you the story that the Frierdiker Rebbe told about his father. And this story is based on the famous story in Gemara. And that's a little introduction to what I'm going to read soon from a Sikha. There's a story in Gemara, which I think by now everybody is familiar with, that Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi passed away, and every Friday night he would come back to his family, sit by the table, make Kiddush. When he sat by the table, he looked no different than he looked during his lifetime. He was wearing Shabbos clothes, made Kiddush. The family was yoitzo with his Kiddush. And this went on for many years. And there was a certain incident, because of that incident, stopped happening. And by the way, there are more stories along these lines, but this is literally in Gemara. And what we see from this is, here is a person that everyone knows he was sick, and everyone knew that he passed away, and everyone knew that he was buried. And yet, this is what happened. So we don't know how to explain it, but we just know that his passing is not the same as the passing of a regular person, and his process is not the same like the process of a regular person. Many stories of tzaddikim who meet with other tzaddikim who passed away generations back, and they studied Torah with, and so on and so forth. On that basis, we're facing the desk. Reading a note, his eyes with tears flowing, and he was reading the note as if he's standing in front of him, but he wasn't there. The chair was empty. And the answer is, to him, the chair was empty. But to Rabbi Rashab, the chair, he saw the Rabbi Marash there. He knew the Rabbi Marash was there. So on this basis, this is what happened. I'm pointing now to page 39. To Sikha, the Frierdiker Rebbe was nostalgic on the 10th day of Shvat. 2.5 months later was Pesach. on the night of Pesach, previous, and where is that? That's the second floor in 770. And not only the Rebbe would be eating there, together with the previous Rebbe, but there would be also other older Chassidim by the table, sitting there. And they would all participate in the Seder. And other Chassidim would finish their Seder earlier. Mainly it was more the Bachram than the family people. They would finish the Seder earlier and come observe, watch how the Rebbe eats matzah, how the Rebbe does all the other customs by the Seder. And that year, the Free Rebbe was nostalgic, but everything was, they left everything the same. The Free Rebbe's chair was standing in his place. There was something in the front which had a covering on it. And the Rebbe sat in his seat. The Rebbe's brother-in-law sat in his seat. And the older Chassidim sat in their seats. And the next day, when the Rebbe spoke, he said, I'm translating what it says here in Hebrew. The Rebbe said, I don't understand something. Last year, the doors were locked. They wouldn't allow people to come in. And people were pushing to get in. This year, the doors were open and nobody showed up. What's the question? Last year, the Friedrich Rebbe was sitting there, so everybody was pushing to come in to watch the Friedrich Rebbe conduct the Seder. This year, the Friedrich Rebbe was just nostalgic, so what are they going to be pushing for? So the Rebbe gave two reasons why he expected people to come there. And these are the two reasons written in this Sikha. One reason is, this is the place where the Rebbe, my father-in-law, spent 10 years observing the Seder. So that alone is enough of a reason that this room has certain Kedusha in it, that people should want to be in this place during this time. The second reason, the Rebbe said, is the story of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, that he came back to his family. And the Rebbe concluded, so for sure, my father-in-law does the same thing as well. Which means he is by the table, and that's why he expected the Chassidim to show up and want to be there. Even though we don't see anything, but just the knowledge that he's there. By the way, we all do something very similar to that every Friday night. After we come home from shul, we say Shalom Aleichem. Who are we talking to? Malachim. We don't see any Malachim, but we're talking to them. First we say Shalom Aleichem, welcome. Then we say Bacham L'Shalom. Then we say, could you please give me a bracha, Baruchoni L'Shalom. And then we say Tzeischem L'Shalom. So we're talking to angels. We don't see them. We don't feel them, and yet we know that they're there because we believe what it says in Torah, and therefore we're saying the things that we say. So similarly, even though we don't see, we know that the presence is there, and therefore we say the things that we say. And that's what the Rebbe said about the Friedrich Rebbe. And on that basis, Hasidim have the same feeling that even though the Rebbe is not blowing the shofar, the Rebbe is not the one who's dancing by the hakafas. But if this is the place where he did this year after year, then for sure his presence is here. I'd like to mention this story because it's someone that you know. One of the teachers here in school, her name is Mrs. Jacobson. And I don't think you'll have her. Yeah, you might have her before on Thursday. She should be here. Ask her about the story. She has a sister. His name is Mrs. Raskin. And by the way, at night, the one who told the story of the Rebbitzin, Mrs. Sternberg, she was talking about this Mrs. Raskin, was a sister of Mrs. Jacobson. Every year she would make a kiddush in our house on Simchas Torah and invite people, and they would come and enjoy. And after many years doing this, one year was the year that unfortunately her father passed away. His name was Rabbi Lipsker. And that happened during the summer. So Tishrei is not far off. She wasn't in the mood of doing it. And this family, by the way, had Mrs. Jacobson and Mrs. Lipsker, the whole family, they all had a very close connection to the Rebbitzin. They would visit her, speak to her. So when she was by the Rebbitzin, she mentioned that this year she's not doing this big kiddush because she's just not in that frame of mind. Her father just passed away, and so on. Either the next day or 2 days later, she gets a phone call from the Rebbitzin. And she said, my husband said, that imagine your father's going to come to the Kiddush and be very disappointed, nobody's there. Therefore, you should make the Kiddush this year like every year. When you hear the story, you think of yourself, her father unless we don't know something, was a regular guy like everybody else, a chassid, but no one thinks of him like he was a rebbe or a tzaddik. And yet the Rebbe says, being that he would attend this kiddush every year, then his soul would also be present there even after. And if that's the case, she shouldn't disappoint him. So in a sense, the same thing at a much more level, a much greater level, applies to a Rebbe, that for sure his presence is here in the same place where it always used to be during these times. And that's why we put down the chair, put down the Rebbe's place, and for that reason. So I think we can sum it up this way, that there are three reasons why Hasidim should come and be here by the Rebbe in 770. One reason is, this is the place where for so many years, not 10 years, but over 40 years, the Rebbe had hakafas, the Rebbe had farbrengens, the Rebbe blew the shofar and observed all the things that he did for so many years. There's so much kedusha in this place that should be enough of a reason why I should want to be here during this time. The second reason is not because of the past, but because of the current. I believe that right now, the Rebbe's presence is in Shul during Yom Kippur, the Rebbe's presence in Shul on Rosh Hashanah, the Rebbe's presence in Shul on Yom Tov and on Shabbos, and on the special times that are designated for the Rebbe to be there. And the third reason is, which I didn't mention before, but there's a third reason. And the third reason is that we're all hoping and praying and have a emunah that any moment Mashiach could come. And if Mashiach comes, everyone will be back and the Rebbe himself will be sitting there. So we're expressing our hope that the Rebbe would reappear to us through the coming of Mashiach. So basically, whichever place you're at, there's a good reason why someone should be here. The only reason that would be the opposite is because it's not easy, it's hard, there's a lot of people. But on a spiritual level, this is what there is to gain. So I just want to point out an interesting thing, that we're going to go to this subject next, and that's the other sheet. If you have the booklet, you have it on page 18. Dafka on Succos, there's an interesting custom, and that's called Ushpizin. What's Ushpizin? The source for Ushpizin is in the Zohar. And the Zohar says these things, which are for sort of a heavenly thing. And what does he say? It says the following. I think I made a copy of it. Yep. On page 19, it says that this is a prayer that we should say when we're in the sukkah. Ulu ishpizin Elon Kaddish, come, holy guests. We have guests that come to the sukkah, which means just like I told you that Friday night, the angels come as guests. They come just for a little bit. They come just for the beginning, and then they leave. But on the night of Sukkot, they actually come and they're there in the Sukkah. Who are the guests? So it says in the Zohar, our holy Avos, our holy forefathers should come and sit in the shade of the Shechina, the Sukkah, which has a shade to it, because that's the reason why we have Schach, is really, it's like the Shechina's presence. Then we say, Avram, you come. With Avram comes Yitzchak. With Yitzchak comes Yaakov. We underline each one. With Yaakov also comes Moshe and Aaron and Yosef and David. And these are the holy guests that come on Sukkot. So in other words, when you hear that Avram Avinu comes the first night, Yitzchak comes the second night, Yaakov comes the third night, really all seven come every night. But each night, only one of them is the one that's sort of the head or the leader. The first night, Avram is the leader. The second night, Yitzchak is the leader. The third night, Yaakov is the leader. The fourth night, Moshe is the leader, and so on. So these are the seven tzaddikim that they are present in the sukkah on that night. Oh, that's what I'm getting to in a moment. And these seven tzaddikim, they're we use the Aramaic word ushpizin, the guest. Now, there are interesting customs regarding this. Some people actually have a custom of saying something every night, inviting Avram Avinu, like we just said over here. And every night they say something else. The first night they invite Avram or welcome Avram. The second night they welcome Yitzchak, and so on. Some people don't even have a custom to take a chair, an empty chair, and designate it that this is the chair where the guest is going to sit. So,
but the Rebbe didn't say that we shouldn't have empty chair.
No, the Rebbe, we didn't follow that custom. We don't even say the words. I'll soon tell you what we do. But let me point this out. Look at page 18 now. Where it says on top, the Chassidische guest.
Rabbi, do you have another book?
What?
Do you have another book?
Do I have another booklet? Yes.
Yeah, but this one doesn't have 18.
Doesn't have what?
Like,
This one has. The Rebbe Rashab was the first one to introduce this idea. And he said that in addition to these tzaddikim, yeah, for you, I think I only have one. Yeah, I have two more left. Perfecto. Yes. The Rebbe Rashab is the one who introduced this idea. Even though I don't think we heard it from the Rebbe Rashab, but we heard it first from the previous Rebbe. I think the first time that he said it was here in America. And he said in the name of his father that these are the guests that come to the sukkah. And I put that on the list so you can follow it. The first night, the Baal Shem Tov comes to the sukkah. The second night, the Maggid of Mezrich comes to the sukkah. The third night, the Alter Rebbe comes to the sukkah. The fourth night, the Mittel Rebbe. The next night, the Tzemach Tzedek. And the sixth night, the Rebbe Marash. And the seventh night is the Rebbe Rashab. Yeah.
Here it doesn't quite line up. Here it says it starts with the Baal Shem Tov, and it goes down until the 8th night.
It doesn't line up. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, and David. Oh. No, so what doesn't line up?
Oh, no, sorry, I thought.
So I wrote number 8. You're right. It's confusing. It shouldn't be number 8. It should be number 7. I wrote number 8 because I wrote on top starting 5741. I was going to tell you why I wrote that, but you're right. It's confusing. I shouldn't put the 1 there. I should have put it later. I was going to tell you why I wrote that. So in other words, this is something which was introduced by the Rebbeim. The Frierdiker Rebbe, when he said it, he actually pointed his finger. He said, here's the Alter Rebbe, and here's the Mittel Rebbe, here's Tzemach Tzedek. It's happened one time. Based on that, starting from the year 5741, that's where I put it up there. And I told you last week that the Rebbe did something very unusual, and he began speaking after the davening was over on Succos night. There's no microphone, it was very hard to hear. And that was the year of Hakel, so the Rebbe began to speak every night. And from that point on, he continued this all throughout all the years. And what did he speak about? Every night he would speak about the guest of that night and how come and what is the relationship between Baal Shem Tov and Avraham Avinu. And what is the connection between Yitzchak and the Mezrich Maggid? And what is the connection between Yaakov and the Alter Rebbe? Sichos upon sichos, drawing a parallel between each one of these two tzaddikim. But it went as far as the Rebbe Rashab. Rebbe Rashab is the 7th, and the Zohar talks about 7. David HaMelech is the 7th. So where do we get to write 9 and 10? So the Rebbe said that if this is the 7th day is the Rebbe Rashab, then the 8th day, it says number 9 here, but really it means the 9th from the Baal Shem Tov. What is going on here? Yeah, mixing it up. It's supposed to be number 8. I see what you're saying. The numbers are confusing. The Frierdiker Rebbe is the 8th day, and he's the 8th Nasi. On that basis, Chassidim added, if that's the case, then the Rebbe is the 9th, and he corresponds to Simchas Torah. And in many ways, we see openly a very clear parallel between the Rebbe and the theme, actually, of Simchas Torah.
Yeah, I thought it's 7 or 8.
With the Maggid of Mezrich and the Baal Shem Tov, it's 9. what does it mean? Why these Rabbeim and other tzaddikim or other tzaddikim surrender? Certain things we don't know. We only know what we're told. But this itself is, practically speaking, what we do is either we say words of Torah of that night's person. In other words, if it's the night of Baal Shem Tov, to tell the story or to give over Dvar Torah of the name of the Baal Shem Tov. If it's the other night, to say Dvar Torah or story of Tzemach Tzedek. Rabbi Marash, each night it's something connected to that tzaddik of that thing. Right? In many places, and I don't think it's in Chabad, but in other places, if there's a young man or a child or someone in the room that has the name of that Shpiz, he gets all the honor. Oh, your name is Moshe. Tonight is Moshe's Shpiz. You're the guest of honor today, and so on. So, what I want to point out to is, look at something very interesting. But would you ever buy a bris? I'm sure somebody was a bris. One of the things that happens by a bris is we put down a chair, and who sits on that chair? Eliyahu. It's called Kisei Shel Eliyahu. Look at page 40, where you have the order of a bris. On top of the page it says, this is the chair of Eliyahu, should be remembered for good. So we put down a chair, and that's one of the honors that are given at a bris. Someone has the honor to put the baby down on the chair where Eliyahu Navi is, his presence is found. So just like there's a custom to do that with the chair of Eliyahu, there's a custom to do the same with the guest. If you turn the page to page 41, this is the Hebrew version of the book called the Book of Our Heritage. Obviously, when I made this copy, I didn't have an English version. I never had a chance to update it, or never had the time to update it. So over there it says, if you see where it's underlined, that there are people that they put down a chair and they say, same word, this is the chair of the guest. Why am I pointing this out? Because something really amazing written in the Zohar, that if someone's at a bris and they don't say these words, this is the chair for Eliyahu Navi, he doesn't come. You don't prepare a chair for him, he's not going to come. He can't stand the whole time. It's tired. They're tired. I don't know, I never saw the reason given, but I think the reason is very simple. If a person says, this is the chair for Eliyahu Navi, he comes. If he doesn't say it, he doesn't come. Why? If a person doesn't say it, it means there's a lack of belief that he's actually there. And if there's a lack of belief that he's actually there, then he actually does not come. So we have to pronounce it. And by pronouncing, we're declaring our Amunah that I believe that he's there. And that itself, and that merit itself, his presence is there, and he sits down on the chair. And the same with the Shpiz, that depending on my Amunah, that could determine to what extent they are sort of revealed in the Sukkah. But there's no doubt that it's a Schus to have the Shpiz in the Sukkah. So from all this, we see a similar idea that we say that when people say the Rebbe is in 770 and the Rebbe is by the Tkiyas or the Rebbe is by Hakafis, it's all based on these teachings that there are certain times, and special certain selected tzaddikim, that we say that they participate in the same events that they participated before, and they're there. So again, I want to show you a sikh of the Rebbe from 1950. It's on page 42. Again, it's in Hebrew. Now all this is already in English. I have to upgrade my books. But there's a book called Proceeding Together. They translated all the sikhs of 1950 where the Rebbe spoke about this. Spoke a lot about the idea that my father-in-law is here. He's with us. He's alive. And here the Rebbe said these words. Look at where it's underlined. The Rebbe said, it says he's here with us just like before. He's in the room and he's listening to us. But if that's the case, how could we farbrengen in the presence of my father-in-law? In other words, it's disrespectful. And the Rebbe answers, because that's what he wants us to do. And then the Rebbe adds that even before, he used to put on the intercom and listen in to how the Rebbe is bringing on an intercom. And now he's listening in a different way. So the Rebbe says, this is what he wants, so this is what we need to do. The Rebbe concluded that just like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi came to his family, so too the Rebbe certainly comes and participates in us getting here together. So this is the basis for the attention that's given to 770. I want to show you something else, an interesting thing. After the previous Rebbe was nostalgic, of course, people wrote to the Rebbe for bracha. And the Rebbe, from the start, and actually did this all the years, he said, yeah, I'll take your request to my father-in-law. But there's something very interesting. Again, some is Yiddish, some is Hebrew, so I'll translate. On page 43, turn to page 43. This is a copy of Igros Kodesh. The Rebbe writes a letter to someone, actually Rabbi Yaakov Hecht. We just heard so much about him. Not about, and the Rebbe is saying, I heard about you to this person, to this woman from Rabbi Hecht. And he writes like this. The part that I underlined was, and Rabbi Hecht asked me that I should bring your request to my father-in-law, for the refuah shlema. And the Rebbe writes, I read it in the room of my father-in-law. In other words, I went into the Frierdiker Rebbe's room, and there I read your note to ask for a bracha. Just like the story with the Rebbe Rashab, that he went into the room of the Rebbe Maharash, and that's where he asked for bracha. But then you turn the page, and the Rebbe writes to someone else. Look at the next page, page 44. Look, page 44 is the same. I read your letter in the room of my father-in-law. Again, in the room of my father-in-law. I must be missing the page. What I wanted to show you is that there's another page where the Rebbe writes, and I read your letter at the ohel of my father-in-law. And the third person, the Rebbe writes, I read your letter in the room of my father-in-law and the ohel of my father-in-law, in both. So clearly, the Rebbe's presence is here. On some level, the Rebbe's presence is there. And certainly it's in a way that, yes, it's different. A Rebbe is different than what we understand and what we know. And the whole thing is his whole life. Now we know everything was miraculous, and this is part of all those miracles. But we know that the presence of the Rebbe is with us, and with us specifically in these places in a much more closer to this Gashmistic world way. Yeah.
So I noticed the idea that Shabbos Tzaddik isn't by his member. Right? So I know some people say Shabbos Friday.
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know why they do it. In fact, it is known. It says that tzaddikim are not in their cave on the day of Shabbos and Yom Tov. And where are they? They're in the place where they were during their lifetime. So I don't know why they do it. So I guess those who do it have to explain themselves. They must have a basis somewhere, someplace to explain it. Any other questions before we move on to the next? Okay. So this is page 40 right here. Want to go to another subject if we have time? Yes, we do a little bit. This is 19. 18. Not everybody has the whole booklet, but most of you do. So let me try to manage. I think the next thing I'd like to go into is Simchas Beis HaSha'eva. What is that all about? What's the source for it? And what's supposed to happen? So.
In other sects, is there like a strong emphasis on Simchas Torah, or is that like in the bottom because the rather like very
Every place there's an emphasis, but definitely in non-Hasidic circles, it's nowhere near where in the Hasidic circles. The Rebbe instituted a custom that that we go to other shuls in different neighborhoods to join the dancing. So it's just, it's very funny. Not chas v'shalom disrespectful to anyone. It's just a different way. We go to those shuls for dancing. So they do the hakapas, which is usually each time around lasts for 5 or 7 minutes. They do 7 hakapas and they're finished. They go home to eat the meal, and that's the hakapas. Then after all that, we walked about an hour and a half to get there. Then we walk an hour and a half to come back. And here in 770, that hakapas goes on a whole night till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. It's totally on a different level. But I think in most Hasidic circles, it is, because I think the simcha, the idea of simcha is really a Hasidic thing. In non-Hasidic circles, they always associated simcha with like not being sincere, not being so afraid of punishment, not having fear of God. They didn't see simcha as a way of serving Hashem. And I think it changed a lot. It changed a lot. The whole world sees it much more and sees not only that, sees that that's a much stronger way of serving Hashem than the other way, especially in our generation. But of course, based on what we just learned here, Simchas Torah is the Rebbe's day. And we see that the Rebbe really, from the beginning of his leadership, emphasized Simcha in everything. L'chatchila river, and to be happy, and even tshuva should be with Simcha, and so on and so forth. So let's go Simchas Beis HaSheva. Those of you who have the booklet will turn to page 22. What is Simchas Beis HaSheva? So the source of it is, all of it is based on a pasuk which happens to be a very famous pasuk, and it became a song. And in fact, many people, even people who are not necessarily religious, know the song and they sing the song. It became like a sort of one of the songs which have to do with just being traditional. And those are the words of Shafta Mayim B'Sason, Mimayna Yeshua. Anyone knew this song before? Those words? Shafta Mayim B'Sason, which means you'll draw water with joy from the spring of salvation. In the booklet, it's on page 23. It's a pasuk in Tanakh. And what does that have to do with the price of fish in China, as they say? What does it have to do with Beis HaSheva? So the answer is like this. All year long, when we brought a carbon, together with the carbon, some of them, there was another service, and that's called Nisach Hayayin. They poured wine. Where did they pour it? On top of the Mizbeach, there was a hole. And on that hole, they poured down the wine. And the wine was part of the service of bringing a carbon. And which each carbon in the Chumash, in fact, in the davening, we say it, how much wine do you have to give for this carbon? How much wine for that carbon? How much wine for the other carbon? And that's called Nisach Hayayin. Once a year, only on Succos, in addition to pouring wine, we also pour water. We don't do it any other time of the year, only on Succos. And this pouring of the water came along with a tremendous, tremendous commotion and celebration and joy. So I thought it would be nice to read a little bit from Gemara of what happened on the Simchas Beis HaSheva. And that's on page 24, especially that, I don't know, maybe I should leave it to Rabbi Greenberg. Could be he'll be teaching it on Friday. Okay. But if you want to read it, it's in your booklet, page 24 and 25 until page 26. It's all a description in Gemara of what happened in Simchas Beis HaSheva. And what the Gemara basically says that during the 7 days when they would draw the water, because the Torah says you will draw water with joy, they would be singing and dancing and rejoicing all night long, literally every single night, to the extent that the rabbis testified that they didn't even sleep these 7 days. So the Gemara says, how can that be? A person can't live if he doesn't sleep for 7 days. And the Gemara says they didn't sleep a decent sleep. They used to put their arms on the next person's shoulder and get a little nap, and then go on with the dancing. And that's how they survived for 7 days. But the most famous quote of all is number 5 on page 22. Mi she'lo Simchas Beis HaSheva. Whoever did not see the rejoicing of Simchas Beis HaSheva in the Beis HaMikdash never saw true Simcha in their life. Number 6 is the quote that I just gave you. We didn't taste any sleep. Not we didn't sleep because they had to sleep, but we didn't taste any sleep. It wasn't a real sleep. Number 3 is what I told you about Nisach HaMayim, the pouring of the water, Nisach HaYayim. So for Simcha Beis Hashem, on top of the Mizbeach, there were 2, I guess, what we call them pitchers, maybe made out of silver. One was for wine and one was for water. They poured down in one of them the wine, the other one the water, and that was part of the Aveda. They would go to a special, not a river, but maybe a creek that had water in it. It was called Mei HaShiluach. It was from a wellspring, and that's where they draw the water. And as they went to the Beis Mikdash, there was all sorts of, there was music playing, and they would go to the Beis Mikdash to bring the water. And then they would dance and sing all night long. Who would dance and sing? Not everybody. Only the heads of the communities, the heads of the yeshivas, the sages. Everybody else would be watching and enjoying by watching them. But the dancing itself was only done by specific selected people. In the language of Gemara, Chassidim Anshemais, which means the sort of elite of the community. They were the ones who were dancing, and everybody would watch. However, the Gemara says, "Ushaftamayim esasa" means you will draw water in joy. So there's another quote which is really sheds a whole new light on the whole subject. It's number 9. Shemisham or Yeshayavim Ruach HaKodesh. From there they would draw Ruach HaKodesh, a spirit of prophecy. So the Gemara says, for example, the famous prophet Yonah, the one who we're going to read about on Yom Kippur. How did he become to be a prophet? From dancing and singing and rejoicing on Simchas Beis Hashem. In other words, there was so much holiness on in that time, and the way to absorb the holiness, what made you a keli, to absorb it, to internalize it, was simcha, and he would be rejoicing so much, he merited that the spirit of holiness penetrated in him completely, and he became on the level of a navi. He became a navi. That's Yonah. Yeah.
Could somebody in the period of mourning go to some Tishrei or not? It's just too.
Depends which Rav you ask. Like many other things. Even Chabad Rav, I know there's some that. I mean, the main problem is because of the music. What dancing without music wouldn't be a problem. It's not.
Back in the days of
I can't remember it so far back. It's a very long time ago.
And also, how come today everyone's dancing, not just like the heads of the elite?
Right, because it's not the Beis Mikdash, it's different. So therefore now it's something which applies to everyone.
Right, yes,
and even women get together and have dancing, women amongst women. And it's part of those things that after the Beis Mikdash, for example, just a second, in the Beis Mikdash, only a Kohen brought a carbon, but we all recite karbanos as if we're all bringing karbanos. Yeah.
My real question, Rabbi, is why do we stop the juggling?
Why do we what?
Why do we stop the juggling?
We don't. If you go to some Chassidus, they usually have a juggler there. Yeah. Juggles fire. Yeah.
Whoa.
It's amazing.
It's very common at Simcha Beis you have a gathering that they have somebody who does the juggling.
Also, is Simchas Beis in Crown Heights like more than in other communities, or it's just like again what you're saying, more Hasidic communities?
It started to be. I think since the Rebbe introduced it here, it started to spread to other communities. I mean, I grew up not in Crown Heights. I grew up in a neighborhood called East New York. It's on the way to the oil. You pass it. I never remember Simcha Beis Hashem to be anything going on, and I think only recently, in the recent years. And I'm pretty sure it's a result of this. Now, the dancing in the streets, that only began 1980. That year, the Rebbe spoke, and he said they should be dancing in the streets. In fact, I remember exactly how it happened. The Rebbe gave a sikh of dancing in the streets. Okay. And then there were 2 people who met on Montgomery and Kingston.
Whoa.
And he said the Rebbe said to dance in the streets, and they started to dance. And then someone else walked by, they joined them, someone else walked by, they joined them. And the crowd got bigger and bigger. I remember I came, it wasn't such a huge crowd yet, joined them. And then whoever was at the head of it decided to just march down Kingston Avenue. And he went down Crown Street from Kingston to Brooklyn. Wherever he passed, all the people in the house, everybody got excited. They came out of the house, joined the group, went down Crown Street, went down Brooklyn, came back on Montgomery Street. By the time he came to Montgomery and Brooklyn and Kingston, the place was like triple, fourple the size. And then more people came, and that's how the dancing started. The next night, the Rebbe spoke, and he mentioned that they were dancing in the street, and the Rebbe expressed how much that's exactly what he wanted. No one was sure exactly what the Rebbe meant, exactly what he wanted. And he explained what the advantage in that is. It should be so much dancing that the streets themselves are dancing. And of course, the first day Chalamayit at night, immediately whoever had a musical instrument came out there and started to play. It was a challenge of instruments. Everybody came with their instrument, but everybody was excited and wanted to play. Later, it became more organized. They got people to sing, but in the beginning, it was just everybody was doing their thing, and the Rebbe kept encouraging it more and more. That's exactly what he wanted, and this became the custom to be dancing in the streets.
Is that why it's still Montgomery and Kingston? Because the first people.
That's how it started, and that's how it stayed. Yeah.
Wow.
That spot has the schus. But I remember reading a sikh of the Rabbi Marash. There was a wedding, Rabbi Marash's daughter, and over there it says that at the wedding there were circles and circles of people dancing. People get together in a circle here, a circle there, a circle there. And the Rabbi Marash said, that's the way it's going to look like when Mashiach comes. There'll be circles of people dancing in the streets. Because in those days in Russia, it was inconceivable even to think of such a thing. The fact that the government, the city, should close down the traffic and allow you to do your thing and to dance and to sing for 7 to 8 consecutive nights, this is a taste of Mashiach's times, which says that the non-Jews not only won't disturb us the way it was throughout history, but they'll actually help us serve Hashem in a better way.
Like the NYPD is everywhere. Closing the streets.
Right, we're taking it for granted, but really it's unheard of, unimaginable in Russia, in Poland, in Italy, in France, unimaginable. And even a lot of places still can't really get to do it.
Amazing.
Not everybody can do what we do here. But the Rebbe did add that when we're dancing, that's what I wrote down here, number 7, we should be dancing and have in mind that we're dancing for Mashiach. In other words, when the Rebbe talks about Mashiach, it's not only that we're dancing because we hope Mashiach is coming. It means that the knowledge that Mashiach is coming and that it's coming so soon has such an impact on us that we're already excited and already dancing. And when we're dancing, in a way, we're dancing to greet Mashiach. And the Rebbe said once, we had a sikha, it says, it's Yontif, so you can't hear the news, but you can ask one of the policemen for the news, and he'll tell you, didn't you hear that Mashiach has come, Mashiach has arrived? You have to think of it as reality. And when we hear that news, of course, everybody will be dancing in the streets. There was something that happened a few years ago, which was like sent chills down everybody's spine. And that is, you all know, there was a story with somebody called Rabbi Rabashkin, that he was sent to jail. And the judge was a big anti-Semite without a question. And she sentenced him for 27 years in jail. Wanted to make it life imprisonment. Nowhere near anything of what he was being sentenced for. But it was clearly, miraculously, he went out of jail. It was so miraculous that he didn't even know that it's happening. What happened was that President Trump decided to pardon him. Obviously, people worked on it, and there were people but one day he got a phone call. They said, okay, get your stuff, you're free. He didn't even take his thing. He just took his tallis and tefillin, and he went out. And what was going on then was incredible because today is a different generation. We have videos, we have WhatsApp. You saw people in Lakewood dancing, people in New Jersey dancing, people in Israel dancing, in Yerushalayim. Everyone was involved in this. Everyone was davening for him. It was like a story, like if you know the story of Mendel Bayless, where he was accused of a blood libel, and when he was released from jail, it was everybody was excited. The whole world was involved. Articles written, yeshivas were saying to him, children were saying to him. It was going on for quite a few years. So you see people spontaneous, nothing was planned, all over the place, dancing and singing, and the reaction of every person was, that's the way it's going to look like when Mashiach comes. You hear the news, there's just going to be, everyone's going to burst into simcha and to singing and dancing, but then it's not going to stop so fast and just keep going. So in a certain sense, we said this in the beginning, that the mitzvah of being besimcha on Sukkot is more than any other yontif. So really, it's like a triple, fourfold thing. Yontif, you have to be besimcha. That's general simcha. Simcha's Beis Hashem, there has to be special simcha because we're drawing of the waters. On top of that, then there has to be simcha because it's Simchas Torah. So by the time they get to Simchas Torah, you're drunk from simcha already. You don't have to drink. You're just drunk from so much simcha that you're increasing every other day. So we're going to go into that as well, about Simchas Torah. Let me just see if there's anything here on the left for the next 2 minutes, something more that I want to go into regarding Succos before I hang up. Oh, I didn't even talk about the Sukkah, and I didn't talk about the Lulav and the Esrog. Whoa, we got a lot to do. So wait a second. Today we don't have any more classes, okay? Tomorrow there's no class, right? Thursday morning we have no class, we're starting late. So Thursday afternoon we have a class. So I guess then I'll go into that. And Friday we'll have to do Simchas Torah, whatever's left. Yep. Okay, Bali Neder. So I'd like to wish everybody a Chasima Gmar Chasima Teva. And you should have an easy fast. And again, there is an opinion that says that when they built the Beis Hamikdash, by the way, who knows when Shlomo HaMelech finally built the Beis Hamikdash and he started celebrating the Chanukah Beis Hamikdash? Oh. When?
They didn't fast, right?
You're close. Today. The eighth day of Tishrei. And they celebrated for 14 consecutive days. It finished at the end of Succos. So Yom Kippur was one of the celebrating days. And they were so on such a high that everybody felt like this Yom Kippur we can eat and celebrate and rejoice. They were a little bit worried maybe there was something wrong with what we did. So there was a heavenly voice that came out and said, whoever participated in this celebration is guaranteed a share in the world to come.
Whoa.
So on that basis, it's possible that when Mashiach will come, the first Yom Kippur will also have the same thing, that we won't have to fast. So first we give the bracha, the traditional bracha, have an easy fast, but there's even a better bracha. Mashiach should come now, and we shouldn't have to fast, and we should just be singing and dancing and rejoicing in the streets of Yerushalayim and in the Beis Hamikdash for the coming of Mashiach. L'chaim. It's water, don't worry.
How do you know, Rabbi?
What time does this class start?